Hello, Renee Flamond here. This next topic, it's a learning curve. It really is, and it's something I'm still dealing with and learning and discovering and unfolding. Because admitting I knew from drama, admitting that I was addicted to the drama, I didn't like that phrase. Please hit subscribe and like. I almost forgot, but I didn't. I didn't like that phrase. I did not. And but as we've discussed in just a few videos back regarding addictions and to hurt and pain and adrenaline, it can be truth for some of us. And it's not something you like. I mean, there was a few things going on in my relationship with my narcissist. Not only did we have the abhorrent cycle, but I had the added truth of knowing that I craved drama or was used to the dramatic-ness, dramatic scenes. Do you know what I mean? And it was a long process of learning that about myself. She hears the garbage truck. And there is so much involved in self-evolution when you're trying to reach a new place of enlightenment about yourself. And this was one of those areas that I spent a lot of time. And I still do. Because it can lend itself to the detriment of you being involved with somebody like a narcissist. If you're battling this as well. So it is something that we have to get it in check. Going back to childhood is what they say you have to do. You have to dissect. You have to look at things. And you know, my researching this disorder helped me even more understand this about myself on a whole other level. Because I really started to look at every aspect. This was so full of dysfunction that when I tore apart the whole narcissist experience, I looked at everything within myself, within him, within the dynamic, within circumstances surrounding us. I looked at everything, as is probably possible by how much I have to say on the topic. But I used to detest it when somebody said I was dramatic. Oh, she's dramatic. She likes drama. But in the way that I don't sweep anything under any rugs, I guess I am dramatic. I want to discuss things. It gets loud. That's the Italian side. These women on my mother's lineage, they're world champion tiny little women who can get their point across. So the explosive nature of what was to come between me and was inevitable. I'm trying to learn, and have been working on it for decades, that a tempestuous way isn't the only way. Even in the situation with the narcissist, as frustrating as they make us, you can talk calmly. You can walk away. I could have saved myself a lot of drama if I did either of those two things. But no. We are talking, and I'm not, it's going to be a dramatic talk. And, I'm never going to not say something. I'm never going to not argue something. I'm never going to not pick it apart or just let it go. Ever. In relationships. Ever. I can't. It's impossible for me to be the quiet, conforming girl. I was ready, I think, to argue and embark on the fighting with the narcissist because of my upbringing. I'm always ready. We were out loud in my family with any and every issue. There was yelling, my God, yes, and lots of love too on the other end of it. Everything was big, though. All feelings were big and dramatic, and nothing was medium. So Okay, so when you become a parent, you pick what you want to bring forward and you leave behind what your parents did that you didn't like. When I became a parent, that was one of the things I knew I didn't want to take forward. I knew I didn't want to be a yeller, and, I broke the chain with my daughter. I definitely did. And then, meaning we don't yell. We didn't do that. I have one child. There's not a lot of opportunity to have to battle when there's only one. I recognize it's an easier situation than when you have multiple children. But it's just something I took right out of the equation. So I was talking once, this was years ago, about noticing how my temper was at bay and how much I've improved. And the kid, I point at her bedroom like she's still here. She said to me, she was little. She said, but Small, you haven't had any triggers. She calls me tiny or small because she's taller than I am. She's been calling me that since she got to be taller than I am. So when she said that out of the mouths of babes, I said, oh my God, she's right. I haven't had any triggers. Brilliant child, I know. I realized then that even though I had kept it away from her, I was indeed craving drama, maybe, deep down inside, that I was used to it, that I grew up with it, that it feels comfortable to me, I think. And it was evidenced throughout my relationships, the romantic ones. They were always tumultuous. That's where I allowed it to come out. That's where I allowed it to come out. And again, I think when you know something and you're comfortable with it, you don't mind existing there. So that's where it would appear. And I was primed to stand up for myself and argue. I wasn't seeking it out, I don't think, but I certainly can add to the drama with the way that I get. And it was no different with the narcissist, this past relationship that I had with the narcissist. I could have chosen not to respond, let alone respond the way that I did. Nowhere to go but down. When you add all of this together, the cycle with the narcissist, somebody who is used to dramatic things in their life and doesn't shy away from it. I wasn't afraid to fight or argue. I'm used to it. I put it on. It's like an old suit. Okay, we arguing? Let's have it out. Doesn't faze me at all. And I'm not saying that that's good or that's bad. Or, it's just the way it is. You have to look at your childhood and see, what are you bringing forward? I had already done a lot of work on this, so I knew this about myself, but I didn't really pay attention to the fact that it was still manifesting itself in this way. Okay? So I could have chosen not to respond or respond differently. Okay? I was never going to be someone who wasn't up for a fight if I was wronged. Which, with the narcissist, you're wronged again and again and again. Even though intellectually I know I don't like it, who likes to fight? In my mind, I don't like to fight. And again, I didn't like that comment. Oh, you just like to fight. But there's truth to it. Watching my triggers with the narcissist made me learn a lot about myself, that I still had work to do in this area. And recognizing the effects of those triggers could have helped me not succumb to the old habit I have of fighting back. If I had recognized them sooner, if I had, and it's big fighting, it's huge. And like I said, unfortunately, I admit, it doesn't faze me. An argument doesn't faze me. Some people get floored by it. We all know people, right? They're quiet in their families. Everything's square. Everything seems, American Pie. Everything seems, you know what I mean? And some of those people, I know families that never, ever, ever raise their voice. They sweep everything under the carpet, or they don't even have problems that they're aware of. They just kind of go on. But if wronged, I'm ready, and it can get ugly. I mean, it just is ugly, isn't it, when it gets like that? Any kind of fighting, the way it can get. If I could go back and not react, that would be beautiful. But we can't. We can only go forward and keep this in mind if maybe you can relate. Or it could be something else, like I said, from your childhood that you're bringing forth that's informing the way that you behave today. Whatever it may be that's directing our personalities, I think it's worth noting that we should reserve any of that good dysfunction we carry from childhood for at least someone who's worth it. Do you know what I mean? I say that tongue-in-cheek, obviously on purpose. I mean, it took your whole childhood to develop that dysfunction. You want to waste it on the narcissist? Again, tongue-in-cheek. I have a straight delivery in case you didn't catch that was a joke. That I actually thought I'd even make any point he could grasp. I mean, the limitations they have in their minds, especially my Nimrod, just adds to the frustration when you're trying to converse or fight or argue. I think it was equally, or was for me, as much about the fight, love cycle, than it was about making a point. Like at some point, God, you think you know you're not going to make a point. But because in my family, as much as there is drama yelling, there's drama love, right? We all love each other and make up and get along and all this very well. We're very close. So you have the dramatic yelling, and then you have, it's like the first trauma bonding experience you have as a child, isn't it? So I would unintentionally recreate that cycle, perhaps, maybe, I think. Like, how dare you treat me that way is a response I think, because I'm empathetic. So how dare you treat me this way? I would never treat anybody this way. Don't you feel how that's making me feel? And then I want the love part, which you get when you make up with the narcissist. So I think I was more willing than I should have been to accept explanation or apology, because I wanted the love part that we had in my family. So we would fight, but we would always, do you know what I mean? It's a cycle you're used to. And if you look closely enough at your own motivations for continuing to try to make headway with this narcissist, be it fighting or arguing or crying or getting hysterical, you may be able to curb said behaviors of yours and realize what's getting your goat can in fact be something you had in you, which is allowing you to remain, or even unconsciously making you remain, right in the middle of all the turmoil. I could have shut down so many of the times it became beyond dramatic. If I had just looked at the situation, assessed my part in it, and didn't react as I did from habit. But I had these learned behaviors, be it discussing or even the habit of calming people down in your family if you were the person who did that, which I was that person for a long while there with a certain person or two. I had things to add, tools to utilize to this fight, and I thought they would help, even if it perpetuated more drama. So I would get exacerbated. The narcissist is unreachable, incapable of hearing anything that I'm throwing at them. I don't know about narcissism yet. I'm arguing. I read about narcissism, learn he can't change, learn they're impenetrable, and I continued. That's the insanity we talked about. So I continued, what, expecting a different result? I knew I wasn't going to get through. That's got to be in me. Or I had to look at it. I had to admit that. That was in me. My yearning to argue. And I don't mean it's just like a flip-flop, I like to fight. No, it's not that. It's I have a need to prove my point, stand up for myself, make you understand where I'm coming from. You know what I mean? It's not just, don't insult yourself and say, well, you just like to fight. That sounds like a really rotten person. So we don't like to admit that about ourselves. It's not so much that, and it does have a lot to do with how you grew up. We're communicators in my family. Communicators. We talk about everything. We'll talk about anything for 10 minutes. I can stretch out a conversation about a cereal for 10 minutes. That's how we do things. Okay? We exhaust every possibility, every solution, every problem. We tear it up, figure it out, and we move on. Narcissist is never going to ever hear anything that I was ever going to say. And I did learn it way before I stopped talking to him about narcissism. I kept trying to talk to him for months and months afterwards. If I had just, there's nothing stopping me from saying, oh, is that how you behaved? Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye. How undramatic is that? I could have saved all the screaming I did and the crying I did and that was on me. And you might say, well, you can't help it. They treat you a certain way. Right. We can't help getting upset and hurt. I do, however, believe and know that I could have chosen a different way to react. My reactions were a choice. As much as I felt I was out of control and it was beyond me and I'm yelling and I'm crying and I'm screaming, if I had looked at it, which is why I'm telling you, and I said to myself, honestly, Renee, you are recreating things that you're comfortable with. You're recreating situations that in the past, maybe I was thinking they brought me solutions in the past. Family, childhood. We would argue, we would make up. So it worked in a weird dysfunctional way of our roundabout way of getting back to love. It worked. So maybe I'm not a doctor. Maybe that was in my brain. I'm going to argue this for 5 hours. It's got to have a solution. Everything has a solution. No. The narcissist, as we now know, there's no solution. So I just encourage you to look at your own childhood and things you may be bringing forth that maybe you can nip in the bud. And I always encourage you, if you can non-react rather than react, if I could take back half the drama I expelled, I wouldn't have been so upset. I could have saved myself a lot of turmoil inside that I experienced. Because the fighting and then you get mad, then it just escalates it all and things get uglier and more dramatic. I just wanted to mention it.